So probably the biggest news going on in the NHL side of things, and just in general, is it's a pretty crazy situation. I think is Mike Babcock, coach of the Columbus Blue Jackets, resigned after I don't know. I don't even know where to start on this entire thing because it felt like it bounced back and forth on how just in general the situation looked. Like there's a lot of different takes on it. Like we got some veterans coming out and saying it wasn't that bad. We have younger players coming back and going, no, it was that bad. It's just the whole thing is pretty interesting. I'm curious what your position on it is, just mainly because, I mean, it really depends on just your whole coaching philosophy at the end of the day. Because Babcock, while he said that he had changed his ways as he did at the opening press conference, it's starting to look like he hasn't with this whole controversy, obviously, and it really does just depend on how they're like with what I think you said. Johnny Gaudreau was the one who said it, so we can check that. But just saying that the only photos he wanted to see was family photos, which when I heard that, I thought that's perfectly fine. Like that's a perfectly fine ask, right? Because he just wants to get to know the players. Makes sense. What it's starting to sound like is he wanted to see more photos and just go through players' personal phones, which is where a line was definitely crossed. I'm curious what your opinion on this entire situation is.
It's just not shocking that Mike Babcock was the one to do this. We talked about it before with him being hired as the coach of Columbus. It's just such a stupid decision by the people in charge over there. At this point, he has such a bad track record with everything that's come out from players that have been under him, and just the culture of like verbal abuse and just all the terrible things that he would do to his players, and it's just like that's not gonna fly in a modern NHL. That's less about motivating players by just making sure they feel like they're gonna die if they lose or play poorly. That just doesn't. That's not a good way to coach anymore. Because it is what it is. It is abuse. And talking about this whole phone situation, obviously all the players have a right to privacy, and there is a fine line between what Babcock and all the older players were saying they were doing. Obviously, as you pointed out, like if it's just seeing family photos and like showing that off to the team or whatever to get to know them better, obviously there's nothing wrong with that. But when you have a coach going through your phone and like having full access to it, and I who knows what the full breadth of
We'll
that
probably never
was.
know.
We'll probably never know. And you almost wonder, I don't want to go too far into speculation into this because it's obviously a serious thing, but since he resigned, you wonder how much of that is just getting ahead of the issue before more comes out and it makes it inevitably worse for him. It's just, it
The
is.
thing I don't The suspicious thing I think about the entire thing from the start was that it's not because what I think and the main difference was when this whole thing came out and Boone Jenner's comments and Johnny Gaudreau's comments came out was that they made it sound like he just wanted to see family photos, which in my head what I thought was that he just had the team send family photos, right? That sounds like a perfectly innocent thing, right? Like in my head, when I heard that the first time, I was thinking to myself, like, that actually sounds like a good idea. Just like get to know the team, get to know the team's families, right? Like, just in general, it seems like a pretty decent thing to do as a coach. But I don't know if he was just like grabbing their phones and just going, "Show me your photos." That's a whole different boundary crossing. So I don't think we'll be seeing him in the NHL again. I think
Yeah,
that this hiring was already very shocking when it happened. This is the nail in the coffin. If there wasn't a nail before, they put one in now. He's done.
Yeah. So Paul Bissonnette was the one who came out with the original accusations on the Spit and Chicklets podcast. And so to get the more specifics on what actually supposedly happened, was that Babcock would take a player's phone, and then he would show their pictures on their camera roll via AirPlay on like on the big screen. I think for the rest of the team. Um, and there's like doing that, just scrolling through a player's entire camera roll, that's obviously a personal line that's been crossed, and doing it to the whole team, it's this kind of like embarrassment in front of the group thing that Babcock is like been known for doing in the past, especially with like the Mitch Marner stuff, where he had Marner rank his teammates by work ethic and then presented that list to the teammates. I don't know what the goal is there, but it's like that public embarrassment part of it. I don't know. It's not a great look, and I completely agree. Like, if considering that he resigned from it, and if there's more information that comes out about it, I think Babcock's coaching days are clearly over. I'm surprised they weren't already. Surprised that Columbus hired him in the first place. But with how much of a disaster this was, I don't think he's ever coming back. Another thing, according to ESPN, the NHLPA is currently investigating. So we talk a lot about, like, we're talking a lot about this in terms of speculation because we don't know what happened. We can't accurately make judgments on it because we weren't there in the room. We don't know what it was. We can only go up based off of what other people said. But the NHLPA is currently investigating it. And according to ESPN, what Bissonnette said, which is what I just went through, where taking the player's phone, going on the camera roll, projecting it up on the wall. Apparently the NHLPA thinks that that's just the tip of the iceberg. So, and remember that this has only been 2 months. It's been 2 months, and this has already happened. It just goes to show what a disaster of a coach Mike Babcock truly is. At least at this point.
Yeah. And I remember when we talked about it, I remember saying that I still think that a version of that tough coaching can work in the NHL, but I think this is going to be like I said, nail in the coffin. It's the funny thing is, like, there was a little bit in me that really wanted to believe that, and this is just like, this is the people can change like part in everybody, right? Like, I really wanted to believe that Mike Babcock could still be a good coach because think about it like this, like, for most of, like, both of our, like, childhoods, when you think of a good hockey coach, you think Babcock, especially in that 2010s, 2000s. He was the Olympic coach. He coached Detroit to multiple like Stanley Cups. I think what we're starting to learn now is just that, I don't know. Well, not even starting to learn. He's done. It's done. Like, I don't know. I don't think the system is going to fly in the NHL anymore. I think players just are demanding a lot more respect in the locker room. And if that era wasn't already over 10 years ago, you can definitely say that it ended yesterday.
Yeah. And it's the kind of thing where you talk about how it's in today's day and age and this culture specifically that style of coaching doesn't fly anymore, and I think that is a good thing. You can talk about how like it's hockey, it's very much a sport where the prevailing belief is that people just need to toughen up and like take whatever they can get, like in the physicality part of it. You get a couple teeth knocked out, you like stop the bleeding a little bit and then get back out there for your next shift. But I think that it is great that that's not being accepted anymore in terms of the mental side of it. Because it takes a toll on these players. We talked about what happened with Johan Franzen, where Babcock just would continually verbally abuse him, and it took such a toll on him. He was having like a breakdown on the bench. That's just not like... We watch these players every day, they get so much money, and you just assume that it's the greatest thing in the world. But at the end of the day, these people, they're still people. They still have emotions and feelings and families. And as important as it is to win games, it's even more important that these players are respected as the people that they are. And Babcock put the winning first. He won Stanley Cups He pushed his players as far as they could go, but I think what we're learning now is that he didn't respect them, and in any case, anywhere, I don't think that's acceptable.
No, not at all. And I think the big story that I'm seeing a lot of big news sites picking up regarding this is that it all just comes back to the whole what's the word? I don't want to mentality's not the word I'm looking for. It'll come back to me. But the whole just how culture. That's what it comes back. The whole hockey culture and how we're just gonna it's truly messed up. As I can definitely say that as somebody who grew up in it, and it goes all through all the levels. Like with this type of Babcock coaching and just the treatment of players, treatment of coaches, treatment of everybody involved, just like the in general, just how everything is handled is just incredibly poor and it needs to change. Truthfully, I think it probably is needed to change for a long time, and it's a topic that's coming up a lot more often now with just how when even as a young hockey player you're trained to be willing to put your body on the line to win a game. Like I remember being like 9 thinking that I had to throw my like tiny tiny body in front of all of these slap shots from all these 9-year-olds who are 6'2" or whatever the hell, right? Like it's the type of thing where you're just not it's not something that should be the case because it's not really the same in a lot of sports. The play through injuries, the all of that. It doesn't fly in those sports. But for some reason, it's something that's such an old mentality to have from like you'd picture that in like really old like football, like 60s, 70s football where injuries didn't exist, you were faking it to get out of the game, like stuff like that, right? Like you know what I mean? Like this shouldn't be it shouldn't still fly in hockey, but for some reason it does, and it goes through all the levels. So I think this is a good sign in the right direction for hockey as a whole. I think with Babcock gone, I think we're gonna actually start to see more and more action taken, which is definitely a good thing. I think it's been a well known thing going on for a while though. I don't think this is new.
No, it's definitely not new. And I wouldn't be shocked if it was even more prevalent before. But what's new is people speaking out about it. And if everything that has been said is true, props to Paul Bissonnette and everybody for speaking out about it, and all the players that did, whether they spoke out in public or spoke out to the NHLPA. Like all the respect in the world to them. Because again, well, obviously you want to win, you want to do everything that you can to win. Like getting that Stanley Cup is the ultimate goal or whatever. You still have to put yourself first at the end of the day. And just in terms of your mental health, in terms of your physical health. And I think, and because people can come back with all sorts, whatever retorts they want, but I think if you are respected, you're going to want to play better, and I hope we start to see that, and I hope this style of coaching that just favors pounding their players into the ground in order to motivate them becomes more of a thing of the past than something we continue to have to keep calling out.
Yeah, and it really is weird that, or I guess not weird, because like I can say growing up in that sort of system, like I've played under coaches like that, where I always thought that as much as I hated the coach's guts, right? Like you grow to hate like somebody who treats you like that. You can also acknowledge the fact that it works, because there's a lot of times where I can say that when playing under that system it did work, but there's also a lot of times where I've been on winning teams that didn't have that, and I had a way better time.
Yeah.
It's safe to say that everybody it's just an overall way better environment to be around when you can be as highly as looking back on it now. There are a few coaches that do it well, and I can say that I still respect them. But there's a fine line when you're doing that, and we're seeing over and over and over again that those coaches in the NHL who try and practice that stuff cannot figure out where that line is. And I can say that I can, in my memory, for the 15 years I've played hockey, competitively for the most part, I have had one coach be able to actually walk that line well.
Mm-hmm.
Past that, and I've played under a lot of coaches who were dicks. I can think of one who actually was able to walk it well, and I respect him for it. But and we did win because of that system. But it really does show the risk you are taking, and I think coaches will start to really look at that as a lot bigger of a risk running that type of system.
Yeah, and I completely agree. I think it's a good point that you make that it is in line, because it's not like coaching with discipline can't exist. It's just about respect, because there's a line between having discipline and going through your players' phones and projecting it on the wall.
You know what? One thing that I want to make clear, because I think the, and you want to know where the line is if we're going to try and set it. It's the difference between discipline that has a reason behind it and discipline that doesn't.
Yeah.
Because I think the coach that I respected playing under, who played with like that type of system, when we lost, we skated. When we didn't lose, we didn't. It's as simple as that. Like, when you win, you don't get yelled at. When you lose, you get yelled at. Right? That's where the line is. Like, if you can, at the end of the day, go home and you can go, okay, we had to skate lines because we lost. We sucked. We didn't skate hard enough. All these things. If you are able to, at the end of the day, be able to put a reason behind why you're doing it, then you can buy into the system. But the second that you are just skating lines because the coach woke up on the wrong side of the bed, or like just something like that, it's just that's where it goes out the window, and that's where we're starting to see the issue here, because Babcock, if what they're saying is true, obviously it's all who knows, but if what they're saying is true about him, just like, and even with the Mitch Marner thing, where he really, what did Mitch Marner do to deserve having to make that list and show it to the entire dressing room? Like, there's no, it just logically makes no sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think there just has to be logic behind the discipline at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I completely agree, and I think that is a common thread in all of the Babcock things, because logic behind the discipline also includes not going too far, because there's a certain limit to where the punishment is more severe than what you did to deserve it, right? Like, and when you're thinking about what happened with the Blue Jackets, he's been there for 2 months and they haven't played any games. So if he's doing it to embarrass the players, I don't get what the point is.
No.
Yeah,
And maybe it's like a... Yeah, no, I was going to say maybe it's just as simple as, like, didn't skate hard enough in practice, but even that, like, with the phones, there's no excuse.
No, there isn't.
There's no... It's so bonkers. Like, because I can say that, like, I've had... Whenever, like, this type of coaching style has come into, like, a team that I've been on, it's always been... Like, even on the worst sides, that coaches that I just didn't respect, even with, like, the verbal, like, you can call it verbal abuse. Like, it's never gone to the point where you'd get a phone taken. That's so... Because the one thing that I've always been able to say I've had is privacy. And that's something that Babcock allegedly took away in this situation, which is just ridiculous. It's something that should never, no matter it shouldn't be taken away under any form of discipline. It doesn't matter what the player did. That's not under Babcock's right as a coach to do. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think, like, you can try and reason, like, give whatever reason you want behind what he said or what he did. Like, I think this is probably one of the things where it's just tough, because I can't even put myself in Babcock's head and try and figure out why he'd want to, like, go through a player's phone. It just doesn't stick, right? So I don't know. That's as much. I've rambled enough on this topic. I knew going into it I'd have a lot to say on it as a whole, but we can end it off there for sure.
Yeah, I think so.